This is the Business Owners IT Podcast with Anthony Gerasch and Ryan Carter, where tomorrow's technology meets today's conversations.
Hi, I'm Tony Gerasch.
And I'm Alex Aguirre, and this is the Business Owners IT Podcast.
A podcast where we discuss tips, tricks, and solutions for business owners involving all things tech. So, Alex,
What's up, Tone?
how's it going? So this is your first week here.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody, if you don't know Alex, I know Alex a long time. He come from the vendor side, and Alex is going to lead up our newly sales department or sales initiative at Unique Computing Solutions. And our hope here is to build a sales team as good as our service team. That's what we want. So, Alex, you can tell us a little bit about yourself and how we got to know each other and go from there.
Yeah. So my name's Alex, and I've known Tony for probably about 8-9 years now. And I've been in IT for probably the last 15, 16 years. Started off working at CDW, cranking the phones. But I actually met Tony with Autotask. Autotask is a PSA platform, ticketing system that MSPs use, technology companies like Tony's use. And, over the years, the company's, been through some evolutions, right, with people aren't going to know what this is, but the acquisition with Datto and then the acquisition with Kaseya. But me and Tony have remained friends for a long time, and got an opportunity to come work with them. And I'm excited because Tony's got a really, really good service desk team, but they've never really had a big sales org, right? Tony, you're it.
Yeah, well, yeah. So usually I would most of the sales that we get, I would be the person to, and I'll still be involved in it, but most of them I would be the key person to do the work. We get our leads different ways. We get them through our website. We get them through speaking engagements. As many of you know, I usually speak at Chamber of Commerce meetings, and I do different speaking engagements. I do some cybersecurity training, a lot of word of mouth. I mean, as a service, we have our first customer, so our customers are always willing to give us good references and talk about us. But I mean, most of my customers will know who Datto is too, because we don't hide the name of it.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my customers have Datto. They may not know so much about Kaseya, but it doesn't. Kaseya is just a company that bought up a bunch of them. But when I first, excuse me, when I first, got to know you, right? It was Autotask and.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah, when I first got to know you, it was Autotask, and I was already using Autotask, but then you came in and was trying to sell me Datto, and I don't know.
Yeah, I would consider Tony one of my favorite type of customers, right? This is the hard guy to win over, but once you win them over, they're your best friend. So I think, do you remember what you said to me like the first couple of calls or?
No, but it probably wasn't good. So,
yeah.
I probably
lose my number.
yeah, pretty lose your number or
get me off the list.
Yeah, or maybe even some bad words in there. But yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that's pretty much it. Like we do get a lot of calls from vendors, right? And we don't choose our vendor based solely on price, right? We choose our vendors based on is it the best solution in the place for the price, and it's also hard to change vendors, right? So, but Datto has been, is a very good product. It was, it's still probably the best product out there for backup, disaster recovery, and business continuity.
Yeah. Speaking of vendors, Tone, I was flying in here. I had a cousin's wedding that we went to this last weekend, and I was in the airport for about 3 hours trying to get checked in because the airline's reservation system wasn't working. So everybody literally had to check in. You couldn't do it, remotely. So, and you ask them, it's because of a CrowdStrike update.
So the CrowdStrike. So I don't know. CrowdStrike is a cybersecurity company. It's mostly in the enterprise space, but there's also, small businesses also use it. So basically, what happened with CrowdStrike is they pushed out bad code. So it started out in the morning. Hey, Microsoft is down and Microsoft has a problem. And it turned out throughout the day that it was actually CrowdStrike that pushed out bad code. At least that's what they were being told, right? So they pushed out bad code, and it caused the blue screen of death or a boot loop or whatever. So it causing the Microsoft platform to recycle through logins. And as the day went on, we found out that I think they said that it was like 8.1 million computers affected by the CrowdStrike, and CrowdStrike bad update, but also it's like just under 1% of Microsoft's install base. That's, I mean, 8.1 million is a lot of computers, right? But in cybersecurity, what happened is today we say, okay, everybody should have full disk encryption, and most people use BitLocker for that. So you have a blue screen of death, and if you're BitLockered, right, you can't reboot in safe mode because you have to put the BitLocker key in to get to it, which is good because that's the first thing that a cyber a person who's going to hack you is going to do. If you have CrowdStrike, if you have ThreatLocker, if you have Huntress, if you have any of these tools, it doesn't matter. If they get you back in safe mode, they can disable those tools and do what they want, right? So if you BitLocker it, they boot to safe mode, they have to put a BitLocker key in, and you can't get in. So they can't get into the computers. So now you got 8.1 million computers, and let's say 3/4 of those are BitLockered, or all of them are BitLockered. You got to go every single computer, and it's an easy fix. It was just delete a file and reboot, but you got to get into the computer. So, and it was funny when that happened, right? So my son's a pilot. I don't know if you guys know that, but he called me up and said, "Hey, what happened with Microsoft? We can't check anybody in." And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." It was early in the morning. I think he was in Aberdeen at the airport. And he said, "Dad, we're not taking any passengers. The pilots and us are flying back empty. We can't check them all in." I said, "Wow." And then I started to look in and determine it was CrowdStrike. So yeah, so my son flew an empty plane with a whole bunch of passengers sitting in the airport waiting to get on the plane back to Minneapolis.
Yeah, so I know CrowdStrike to be, AV, EDR, endpoint detection response. They have a SOC. Obviously we don't use them. But what do we use, Stone? I mean, you did some sort of evaluation when you went through these processes.
Yeah, so, the equivalent to CrowdStrike would be, in our stack, would be ThreatLocker and Huntress endpoint detection and response. Those are the solutions we use. ThreatLocker is the key solution, right? It's application whitelisting, storage control, network control. It's an awesome product because it basically blocks everything. It's called allow listing. It blocks everything and only allows what needs to be run. So if you had CrowdStrike and you had ThreatLocker, Danny, the guy from ThreatLocker, came out with a video and stuff, said, hey, if you have ThreatLocker and you're using CrowdStrike, you can use ThreatLocker storage control to block the file that's causing the problem. And you can use or you can use application whitelisting to block the program. And, obviously it boots long enough, right? So you have to boot up in order to push out those policies. It's got to boot up. But the ThreatLocker policies push out pretty fast, and I think they had some success with that. But, it can happen to anybody. And when you look at it, right, you look at this was bad code. But, there's been supply chain attacks, right? There's been attacks where, people put out malware the same way. It could be, another company. You get updates all the time, right? You're getting updates all the time. You get updates for Zoom. You get updates for Adobe. You get updates for all these software that you guys use, right? They could put out bad code and cause the same thing to happen. And it could be malicious code. It could be, it could potentially be malware or ransomware. So, so these tools, you're not protected from it.
Yeah. What I thought was pretty cool is I actually sent Tony a text message about 7:30 when I got the alert. It was actually one of my friends that I used to work with was like, "Oh my God, did you see what just happened with Microsoft?" And immediately sent it over to Tony. I know we don't use CrowdStrike, but still. And within like 30 seconds, he sent me back a response with the fix for it. So it's like, I was like, "That's pretty good. That's pretty good, Tony."
Yeah. So we didn't notify any of our customers, but I did have somebody ask me. I don't know, one of my customers asked me, well, why didn't you notify us about this? I said, I didn't notify you because it doesn't affect you, right? You don't use CrowdStrike. And we knew what it was. And, we had the fix for CrowdStrike. We sent it to all of our techs and everything in the morning. Ryan did. And Ryan's not here today. He just couldn't make it. But he sent it to all the techs, and we knew what the fix was. It's just that... and we did have customers down, actually. So we did have customers down but we didn't manage that part of it, right? It was for their software in the cloud, so their cloud software. So there was a couple of customers of ours who I think Right Networks was one of them. We have some customers that use Right Networks. I think they were down. I don't know if they said it was for CrowdStrike, but they were down at the same time. So a pretty good chance it was a CrowdStrike issue. And then some other civil engineers, right? They also were down. They use a platform. So it affected a lot of people, and they're still not up. I was on social media this morning, and you go through the airport, and there's still a lot of the screens are still at this blue screen of death for, leaving and entering, passengers leaving and entering the airport. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, so I don't know any other current events. I mean, it's pretty crazy, right? We had the CDK thing, right? Now we have CrowdStrike. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen next week.
Yeah. No, it's like an influx in cybersecurity issues that are popping up. So, working in the vendor space, I'm intricately familiar when things pop up because it's so visible, right? We have insight into, tens of thousands of MSPs, and everyone's always getting hit, but it doesn't exactly make the headlines. So when you're a cybersecurity firm, like Unique Computing Solutions, and you have 200, 300 customers, you see those things. They're a lot more prevalent than any one business would see, but there's a lot out there.
Yeah, and I'm always talking about, we have a lot of customers and we have a lot of endpoints, right? And you're always talking about is, IT firms are like people who are using IT firms need to ask their IT providers what they're doing to protect against their tools. Mm-hmm. What are you doing to protect your RMM against the RMMs installed on my computers against my network? What are you doing to, protect, somebody from running, rogue files or doing something or stealing my data? How do you make sure that your techs are not getting in, from home or on unauthorized computers? I mean, all of those things. I mean, you came to work and you're like, oh my God, you had to get a FIDO key and
the YubiKey.
Yeah, the YubiKey, and you had to have all that set up prior. Otherwise, you didn't have access to anything.
Yeah, you guys have a tremendous amount of authentication to get into the systems. I will say that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's and we have to, right? Because you don't want to hire somebody new and have them just be able to get in from home. You don't know these people, right? Mm-hmm. Even though you do your background checks and you do these things, you don't necessarily know when you hire somebody new how it's gonna. How it's going to play out. You hope you did good vetting, but you don't know.
Yeah.
So, I think we could probably just wrap it up. I don't have anything else.
Yeah. I was just curious because you mentioned the YubiKey thing, right? And it's like, how do you pick your vendors, Tone? We're talking about CrowdStrike. We're talking about Huntress, ThreatLocker.
Yeah. So typically we pick vendors that are MSP friendly, mm-hmm. and we try to pick the vendor that has not always just on price, but has good price points. Has a good reputation, stands behind their product, right? ThreatLocker. I mean, I had Danny get on a call with me because I was trying to do something. Basically, what I was trying to do is I didn't want anybody to be able to get into my wife's computer or my home computer from anywhere except for the people I wanted. Mm-hmm. And Danny got on the phone and helped me do it because we were having some problems with it. So Danny's the founder of ThreatLocker, and the same thing over at Huntress, right? The founders are still involved. Sometimes that adds a lot to it. I mean, when you have access to the key guy, and it's similar to us, right? We always give our cell phones to our customers, right? Every proposal has Ryan's cell phone, my cell phone in it, and it's like, and you give them your cell phone. So if your customer needs access to you, you got access to them, and that's what people want.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah. So I think this will wrap up this version of the podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Business IT Owners Podcast, and we hope to see you next week.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
Unique Computing Solutions. Your IT challenges solved.